Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you the top 10 most epic Argentavis, so let's get straight into it. In at number 10 I've decided to put the Argentavis but also the Argentavis, as I find these really add a lot in the epicness of just truly what they are in Ark. Like, these are ridiculously fast flying creatures which just have crazy saddles and crazy abilities, and they are just so cool and so epic to use. And the Argentavis can even do all kinds of acrobatics as well with the press of a button. It's a literal dog fighter but in Ark, and same sort of goes for the Argentavis. Not Argentavis, it is Argentavis. What am I thinking? For the Argentavis as well, but I'm putting the Argentavis here as I do think it is the cooler or the most epic of the two, because obviously that saddle just looks so gorgeous, and on top of that it just has all those acrobatic moves and sort of looks a little bit cooler as a creature as well. Not quite as primitive and maybe a little bit more futuristic, but yeah, it's a really epic Ark tame in my opinion. Now, I really love the ability that the Velo has. Essentially it acts as a sort of portable turret, if you will, and obviously it can shoot all kinds of spikes and spines into its opponents. It really does stand very highly in the department of a fighting creature for me, and I really like its ability. It's unique in the sense that Wildcard has never revisited it since, and obviously the R Velocity to come out on Gen 2 as well, so it's clear Wildcard does care about its creatures and acknowledges them as being really good. It's just sort of actually a bit of a shame that they didn't do more with these creatures, but also sort of not a shame as well, as actually these creatures are a lot better off as their own standalone thing, and I really like that sort of Wildcard kept them to their own in a way. I think we all know the Desmodus by now, and this creature is really a favourite of many and definitely a favourite of mine. The Sanguine Elixir is just such an epic ability to have. A third of your tame will be done with the simple click of a button. I'm not sure about passive tames, but considering the vast majority of Ark tames are knockout ones, you know, it's going to save yourself a lot of time, especially if you like playing it on official. But even if you don't, it is still going to save you a lot of time unless you've got ridiculously high rates, and then there really is no point of this creature being here, or really a point of most creatures being there, because, you know, you're just an OP god at that point. Either way, these things also can glide around like the Snarl, another very epic creature, but sadly it's not making the list today. And obviously they can grapple onto any kind of wall or virtual surface or even ceilings like the Tapihara as well, but you know, this is a far better creature than that one. You really can't go wrong with the Desmodus. It is a very epic, cool model design, and it fits into the game nicely with a healthy amount of good abilities. In at number 7 I'm deciding to put the Donus, as this is just such a nice creature for me to have, and especially considering it can literally grapple on to any sort of large creature and tear them to shreds with that bleed ability. It is really a epic ability. The animation is just so cool, and the effects with the damage is just great as well. These creatures are really ones of style. Just look at that. This creature is just bleeding out from within. Honestly, it gets me every time. And these creatures take no full damage too. They are insane at traversing the map. They have got great movement speed, great general mobility, and the pack buff on top of this too. They can climb any sort of wall or vertical surface with no issues whatsoever. They are a prime boss creature for doing that bleed ability, of course, but with the pack buff you've got an even better time with yourself, and they are very fast agile creatures, and also not too difficult to tame, just requiring you to steal their eggs from the chalk cliff biome and simply raise it as your own. Coming up next we have got the Mwing, and this is really a creature of insane speed and just general great travel. It spawns on Genesis Part 2 and its saddle was unlocked at level 18. You're going to have no trouble with using this creature very early on in the stages of your Ark playing, because again that saddle was unlocked extremely early on, and although maybe there was a bit of a learning curve to be said when actually, you know, riding around on this creature, it takes a little bit to get the gist of how you control it and all of that. You aren't going to struggle too much, and at least I haven't in my playing. The learning curve isn't the steepest thing in the world compared to some other creatures. They're essentially just a big flying platypus. They really do have a lot going for them in terms of looks. Actually, people don't give them enough credit for it, but in my opinion they are very good lookers. They also are very great for underwater travel. They're decent swimmers. Again, people under-respect them for that in a way. Obviously, they are portable feeding troughs too, hence this animation that's playing still disturbs me slightly, and they gather berries too. In at number 5, we've got the rock drake, and come on, this creature is just so absurdly great. I simply have to put it on the list. From its release in 2017 on the map of Aberration, this really is a staple, and we all know and love it today. While maybe not quite as sound in the ability aspect as the Mwing, at least from my perspective, it can climb any surface that you could possibly think of, being vertical or even more than vertical. You could be completely upside down this thing, and obviously you can dive bomb onto any sort of patch of elevated ground too, which is a general nice thing to have. Although they aren't as great for less high or differing in elevation environments as shown here. I really didn't give it the best place to sort of show off its skills, if you will, in this environment, because it can't do the best in an environment like this for great travel, but they do have some pretty hefty damage, and with some Lazarus Chowder, the Rockwell boss on Aberration is an absolute cheese. These things are also a dream to tame as well. There's just such a nice process to go along with it. It's basically the Wyvern tame, but you've got to go down all the way. I think it's called the red zone. My brain is in a bit of a fuzz with the Aberration zones, but you know, the one that's really deep underground, that one. You go there, and then obviously you steal the rock drake egg, and then that's how you tame one. Then you've got to raise it up, use air conditioners, don't bother with anything else because the temperature range is absurdly low, I think. Either way, yeah, let's continue. Next up, I'm putting the Blood Stalker, and I love the general concept of this creature. It really does excite me as a general tame. Like, come on, this really does have a lot going for it, and especially considering it is my favourite underwater mount of all time, I really did need to put it on the epic creatures list. If you don't like spiders, or you just generally have arachnophobia, then you're not really going to agree with this creature being here. But for me, it is just so cool. I love its design, I love its animations, I love its abilities. You're essentially Spider-Man in an arc. But the reason why they're so good underwater is they're quick, they can also skate along the top of the water too, and you can see all the angles of the creatures. In a very low visibility environment such as the ocean, it is very useful, in my case at least, to have the ability to see what enemies and creatures are aggroed onto you ahead or behind. And still, once you're out of the water, which most creatures that reside in the ocean can't do, you've still got a great travelling mount that simply isn't just going to die, or at this point not even let you out of the water in any sense. These really are just great for general versatility of travel, but I love their model design and I love all of their in-game uses. Then at number 3, we've got the Shadowmane, and really a lion, fist lion. What can be much better than a creature like this? It just has a heck of a lot going for it, doesn't it? This is a hunking beast of a creature when it comes to how packed it is full of abilities. It's relatively small, there's not really any issues size-wise, and that makes it quite a useful caving creature. Also, the only real difficulty with this creature is its taming method, which is laborious at the best of times. But once you've got around that, you've got yourself a gold star of a creature. It can jump to incredible heights, like you can see here, but also it has the pack buff, it can go invisible, it has the hydration buff, and it is a great swimmer, like you'll see in just a second when I show it off. And it is sort of such a shame that the tame method is so difficult, and also they have been nerfed since release, but they still are gold star creatures in my eye. They have natural armor too, which the wyverns don't have, and considering they don't have a saddle, that is a very nice thing for these creatures to hold to them. Very, very epic tames. In at number 2, I've decided to put the Rhinognatha, and I don't really include this thing on my list nowadays, but when it comes to epic art creatures, this really is one of the all-time greats. It spawns on the island and the Lost Island in any given swamp biome. Not sure about ASO though, because the spawns tend to be a little bit wacky with creatures that are in said swamp biomes, and they might just spawn around the rivers, but I don't think that's quite the case for the Argentavis. You might also find them in some redwood regions too. Either way, besides the spawn points, they're relatively rare, at least I would say on ASE. In ASA they do spawn more constantly, but that is besides the point why they're epic. I should really get onto it. Their model design is just so cool, and their abilities make them very avid and effective raiders. They are just so good at their job for that. They're also great at carrying all kinds of creatures. They are amazing at carrying large creatures. They can carry Rexes and Parasaurus, which is, considering how long I've been playing Art for, it's an insane thing to think about, that a creature can actually pick up those tames. The tame method is pretty much a rip-off of the creature, which is in the #1 spot, so I'll save the explanation for that creature. And actually, speaking of it, we might as well get onto it right now. And in number 1, we have got the Reaper. Come on, this creature, in my opinion, is just the most epic. It fits into the map of Aberration so well, and its tame method was so revolutionary for the time, and still is very revolutionary to this day. I still love this tame to bits. Maybe not quite as much as the first time, but the first time is always the best, as they say, isn't it? That's what she said. Either way, continuing on, this is one of those tames where it really is a must-have in any Ark player's library. If you have never tamed one before and you have access to Aberration, I would strongly recommend you start playing the map and you get one of these things. It is going to be an experience which you never forget. Essentially, get a Reaper Queen down to below 1000 health, it will impregnate you, and then you have to gather loads of XP to get 100% effectiveness. You probably want some pheromone glands as well once that baby is born, so it doesn't really kill you, because yes, it will kill you. But even with the pheromones, sometimes they're a little bit frisky, and they might just kill you anyway. That tends to be how things work. You don't actually technically need the pheromones, but it just makes that claiming process a lot easier, which is maybe something you wouldn't normally have to think about when raising a child, but they're a little bit more deadly all the way until, you know, you've actually claimed them, and then they're pretty tame once they've kind of come out of that original baby stage form and they turn into what Reaper Kings usually look like. But yeah, the most epic tame, in my opinion, it really does have to be said. The top 10 best Ark tames if you're a noob. In at number 10, we've got the Megalodon, and I want to put this creature here as a basic underwater tame. This is really going to get you far. The Ichthyosaurus and the Basilow are good shouts as well, but if you want to go for a creature which is going to deal some damage and still be relatively easy to tame, they do spawn quite close to the shore, the Megalodon is your bet. If you just want speed, the Ichthyosaurus is the way to go, and if you want something a little bit more robust, then the Basilow is going to be the way to go, but those tames are a little bit more difficult, and it is something to watch out for. Whereas the Megalodon can be very simply done with a crossbow and 2 trank arrows and then just some fish meat. If you find one that's near the shore, that is your opportunity to get one, trank it out and tame it for yourself, and you will not regret having one of these for just general basic ocean travel. As they have the bleed ability, they can deal quite a large amount of damage, and they really can get a lot done considering how easy these things are to tame. Although this is somewhat of a challenge to tame, if you prepare this successfully, you won't struggle with it too much. If you build a very basic 2x2 trap, get some ramps and obviously door frames around it, then you can tame one of these things with relative ease. You just need a little bit of basic preparation, and you want to be level 69.
Nice.
That may seem like a little bit of a stretch, but you can still be a noob to the game and be of a somewhat high level, and you don't even need the saddle to get some use out of this creature. You can just use it as a bodyguard until you get the saddle and just level it up the whole time, and you're going to have a good time with a creature like this. So once you have the saddle, you have much improved berry and fiber gathering with some insane damage on top of that too, which you really can't deny is going to be something very useful, especially if you're new to the game. Again, even if you don't have that saddle, you can still use it to attack creatures around you, and you'll get a lot of benefit and protection from that. The saddle is going to be a very important part of all of the gathering aspects of this creature, but all of the protection you can do that without a saddle. And they're also a great boss creature as well, especially for the dragon, but you're probably not quite thinking about that yet. I'm putting the Beals next, as I find this is a really effective just general traveling mount around the map, and its cement paste gathering is insane. And if you ever get caught up on gathering cement paste as a resource, either go to beaver dams or tame yourself one of these things and kill loads of insects. You're going to get tons of it, and you're never going to need to really go out and get any more until you do actually in fact run out. But you can probably tell they are very fast, and considering the taming process isn't too difficult, apart from the biome, you're not going to have a lot of side effects to actually tame this thing. You're just going to be getting a good small travel mount that can also do very well underwater, and it's an insane resource gather for cementing paste. Considering all of that, when you put it together, this really is a creature which I think you should be getting, because even if you don't use it for that cementing paste gathering ability, which is a little bit of a shame to be honest, you still have a creature which deals reasonable damage. Actually, people don't give the Beals enough respect for the damage. It can also swim very fast, especially considering its size. It makes it so effective for if you're early to the game, because you're not going to need a lot of space to facilitate this creature as well, because it's so tiny. And obviously on top of that, they can just pretty much travel anywhere. They can jump around. You can get a lot of use out of the traveling abilities of this creature. In number 7, I'm putting the Barry, and the only reason why I'm putting this further back is caving shouldn't be your main priority really, especially if you're a noob at the game. It's something to definitely think about, and that is why I'm putting the baryonyx here, as it's still something which I think you should be taming even if you are a noob to the game. Just maybe you don't need to go into all of those caves yet, but if you feel up to it and you're prepared, then I'm not going to be the person to stop you and say, well, you need to get these other things done first. If you feel like you can do it and then you do it, that is very good, and you're making good progress in the game. But either way, a creature like this is just going to be great for general travel too. Yes, a Styler could be a good shout as well, but I find maybe that's a little bit far-fetched for a noob, and I don't want to like undermine you in a way. But if you feel like you can go for a Thyler as well, that would be a great honourable mention on this list if you feel confident enough to do it. It all really does come down to confidence at a stage, as when you play the game more, you're more confident with your abilities, and obviously you're more knowledgeable on tame methods and things like that. This is a very simple knockout tame, and then feed some fish meat. You will have no troubles whatsoever, especially if you're playing on ASA, because sometimes they don't even spawn in the swamp biome, they just spawn next to rivers, so the biome is even easier to find these things in. The Caro maybe is an unpopular opinion for you, but I am saying that this is a creature which, for beginners and noobs and all those people, this is a great first big carnivore to have. Yes, it's probably not going to be your first carnivore, in fact that might be the next creature coming up on the list, but this one is still going to definitely carry, and an aloe may seem a little bit intimidating. Again, if you want to go for it, then you go for it, and I'm not stopping you. But I would say the Caro is a good goal to set your eyes on. They deal the bleed ability with their second attack. They're not too difficult to trap and then knock out and then tame. It can be done with basic meat, but if you want to get prime and you've got prime on you, obviously of course use that. The tame is going to be much faster. Or you can simply kill an adult Caro if you're on ASA, and then if it has a baby attached to it, you can simply press E on that, and then boom, you've got yourself a Caro, and that's easier obviously, and depending on your rates it also will be quicker. But if the raising times are still unofficial, then it's going to take far longer. But I find on default single player settings it barely takes any time at all, and you're not going to be struggling over all of that. It's just a really nice, neat, small carnivore that is capable of dealing quite a lot of damage, and I think people should be using these things more, especially if you are new or early to the game, because they're very easy to tame, at least from my perspective of things, and you can get a lot of use out of them. At number 5, I've decided to put the Raptor, as this is definitely like something which you should be going for. There's nothing really like the Raptor in that stage of the game where you can unlock the saddle, and it is a very fast, versatile carnivore that can get you around the place and see a lot of progress being made just by you simply decimating a lot of things. Don't undermine especially a high level Raptor. They can do a heck of a lot more than you may think they can. Yes, their health, stamina and weight isn't the best, but their damage does rack up reasonably well, and if you go for a higher level one, then you might find yourself actually having a one with decent weight, health and stamina. It's not going to be the highest in the world, a Caro will surely beat it, but you can still easily kill Caros on something like a Raptor. But once you tame your own Caro, it's kind of like it's easier to kill the wild ones in a way. It's just how it scales in my opinion. But yeah, the Raptor is a very fast, versatile, great mount for just generally traversing around the map, which people don't give it enough credit for. It is a reasonable travel mount and you can get a lot done with it, and it deals a very nice amount of damage. Fast attack speed, of course it can be bowlered as well, so it's incredibly easy to tame. Simply bowler it and give it a few tranks. As long as the rest of the pack is somewhere else or has been killed off, then you'll have no troubles taming this thing whatsoever. Now I'm putting the Mwing here in at number 4 because it is just such a good travel mount, and as long as you have Genesis Part 2, this is going to be a really good one for you. And I think it spawns on Fielder as well, which is a free DLC. But if you do not have any of those maps or you're not playing on them, it's fine. You can pretend like I was never talking about this creature at all. But I think you should still have knowledge of this. Its saddle is unlocked at level 18 and it is the best travelling mount out there with no competition. You can use a couple of signs, usually about 3, to trap this thing within them and then trank it out with no issues whatsoever. And then you can even get a really high level one just straight off the bat and you have yourself the best travel mount in Ark. Considering this saddle was unlocked at level 18, like I've said before, it is just insane how much speed and versatility you can get out of these creatures, which is why they're just so good for noobs or people who are early into the game. But again, if you don't start on the map where they actually do spawn, you can obviously transfer them over, but I won't get into transfers today, and that's so you can get them onto your other map, or simply wait and then when you go on those maps, tame one and see what you think of them. They're also pretty good swimmers as well, act as a portable feeding trough for when you're breeding stuff, and they can gather berries too. At number 3, I've decided to put the Steger here, as this is an incredibly useful berry gatherer, and it'll probably be the best one really just across the whole game. Yes, the Strider and the Bronto and the Diplo may be gathering more berries, but in terms of just how easy these things are to tame and just how many berries you can simply get out of them, it is truly insane. And I love the just like ratio between how easy these things are to tame and just how much use you actually get out of them. A Parasaur and a Trike is a good shout as well. I'll give them a brief honourable mention here, but I'm mainly going to be talking about the Stego because I really just prefer this creature. And yes, a Parasaur is probably what you're going to net yourself first, and that is totally fine. Don't feel ashamed to tame yourself a Parasaur and really like the Parasaur, but try and aim for something like a Stego in the future afterwards, and you're going to have a much better time with berry gathering. Also, if you're getting into PvP as well, which, you know, most people probably aren't, especially if you're early on into the game, then you can use these things as turret soakers as well. So if you're thinking of doing some basic raids and there's a base that you want to raid which got maybe, let's say, a couple of turrets or even just one turret on it, then try and soak it with the Steger and see what happens, you know, test it out. But also, you know, be careful because those situations can very easily end badly, and also if the players are online as well, you can find yourself in a bit of a sticky situation. But this is really a creature which I think you should be considering to get, and if you don't get one, what are you doing? Then at number 2, I've decided to put the Argentavis, as this is really going to be something which you're going to want to go for. Again, these saddles are unlocked in the level 60 odds, but really if you get a basic trap and then trank this thing out, or sometimes you don't even need a trap if you're going for low levels, you're going to find no issue with taming this thing, apart from the biome can be a little bit hostile. Again, just some basic preparation of items and things to fend off some enemies, and maybe the creature which is actually in the number 1 spot as well to help you out along the way. It really does make this tame a lot easier actually. And then you've got yourself an insanely great transporter of all things metal, crystal and obsidian, because it's got 50% weight reduction on all of those. Its saddle also acts as a smithy, so if you ever need to craft some metal tools or repair metal tools on the go, that is a very useful thing. And if you think you're doing caves again, that is going to be very useful, because the Arthropleuras or centipedes, you might not know what I mean by Arthropleuras yet, but you will eventually. then yeah, they will break your armor if they do spit at you, so you know you want to be careful for that, and actually just avoid them if possible if you're getting into caving scenarios. But eventually one of them is just going to break your armor, and having some metal in your RG just so you can repair that once you're out of the cave is going to be very, very nice to you. Then you can pick up a wealth of creatures too. If you have a friend as well, you can obviously pick them up with this, and you can pick up a small creature in the mouth of this tame as well. They also have a regen ability, so if your RG is low on health, simply kill something that's relatively small. If something is already dead, simply eat that dead corpse. That's why if you actually kill something that's RG is around, they'll go for it. In at number 1 is the Pteranodon though, and although this isn't as good as a creature compared to the RG, at least from my opinion, as a noob or person who's very early to Arc, this is just such an easy tame, and it is going to elevate your progress so much through Arc. It really does it just is deserving of the #1 spot. If the Mwing spawned on the island, it would take the #1 spot, but because of the maps being probably the ones that you're not going to be starting on, yeah, this creature easily takes the #1 spot, being a fast, very viable traveling mount, and it really does add a new dimension to the game when you can actually fly around the place. On top of that, they are ridiculously easy to tame. Simply boulder them and then either club them out or use some tranks. You can only need like maybe a couple of tranks, so if you're taming even like a high level one, probably 10 tranks at a maximum. They've never really used more than that for me when going up to 150, and then obviously it's going to be easy. Trank it out like that, then feed it some meat or prime meat if you've got it, of course. The only real difficulty is going to be going down to that saddle, as the chitin and keratin can sometimes be a little bit of a difficulty, but I would definitely go for the chitin side of things and find any insects, really small ones, so like the ants, the Titanomira or the Megalodon, which are the dragonflies. I'm using the technical terms here, but you know, I'm trying to simplify it down a little bit because you may not know what a Megalodon or Titanomira is, and genuinely I wouldn't have known what a Titanomira was before I started playing Arc, but I did know Megalodon because I learned a little bit about the Carboniferous at that point, and here you can see as that is how simple this Pteranodon tame is. I've just bouldered it there, and then I'm shooting it with a long neck with some tranks, and it only took 1. Again, you're probably going to be using a bow or a crossbow. But anyway, that is the end of today's video. I really hope that you all did enjoy it, as I definitely did enjoy making this one. As always, comment down below what is the best noob or just general early on Arc 10 that you can think of, and if you didn't agree with this list, then put your 10 down below, and I'll see you all later.